here are the survey results from admissions officers from 128 medical schools. They shared exactly what matters most when deciding who gets into medical school and who doesn't. I'll help you translate this survey into 5 key takeaways that you can use today to become more competitive for your dream programs. I'm Mike. I've helped hundreds of premeds over the last 7 years get into medical schools like UCLA and UCSF. Takeaway number 1, separate the criteria into black and white categories, important versus not important. In the first column here, you'll see that there are many criteria in the highest importance column. It's not just your grades, it's also your extracurricular activities, your experience with underserved populations, and your quote, soft skills or the AAMC's core competencies. And on the flip side, there's everything else on this survey. Those we can bucket into the far less important category. And interestingly, a lot of these things here, most premeds care a ton about, although this survey explicitly say that they matter far less. These include your major, how competitive your undergrad is, your conferences, presentations, and posters, and your honors and awards. So follow the explicit advice given by 128 admissions officers and don't get things twisted. For example, many premeds underestimate the role of physician shadowing, saying that it's extremely passive and there's not much to learn there. And yet, right there in the first column in the most important section, AdComs are telling you that they're really looking for this. So in summary, protect your GPA, find a dedicated time to study for the MCAT, build a resume with impactful clinical experiences, make a difference with disadvantaged and underserved communities, and demonstrate genuine leadership. We'll go over exactly how to do that in takeaway number 3. Takeaway number 2. Be careful misinterpreting your experiences. You may look at this survey and one reasonable interpretation is to say that community service is more important than research, and shadowing is far more important than intercollegiate athletics or teaching and mentorship. But there's a ton of nuance missing here because not all experiences are the same. Just in the teaching and mentorship category, you could be a tutor for a middle schooler learning pre-algebra, or you could be Sal Khan, the founder of Khan Academy. Both are teaching related, but both differ significantly in the impact column. And on the flip side, even though community service is in the most important column, it's not really impactful to volunteer at a soup kitchen for 4 hours every single quarter. There are many medical students who are former Olympians and Division I athletes, and those intercollegiate athletics are certainly impactful and stand out for their application. So if we want to be conservative about translating this survey's results, I would say that all premeds must have a foundation of community service, physician shadowing, leadership, and research. You want to first start with a well-rounded, strong foundation of an application, and then pivot towards the second phase, focusing on impact. Impact trumps everything, including the categorization of the extracurricular activity. And it can be hard to figure out what admissions committees see as impactful versus not. And the easiest way to do that is to read real successful medical school applications. Our application database features 8 full medical school applications, including my own, that got into schools like UCLA, UCSF, UC San Diego. Always free in the description box below for you to get a sense of what impactful really looks like. Takeaway number 3, proof is what makes you stand out. A lack of proof makes your application generic and mediocre. And to be clear, proof does not mean a bunch of empty leadership titles and honors and awards. Proof can be measured quantitatively. Dollars fundraised, patients signed up for health insurance. Proof can also be measured qualitatively. For example, you can tell the story of Shannon, who used to donate to the women's shelter, but now, after a bad turn of luck, has found herself using the women's shelter's services. Or my patient Ben, who lost 18 pounds over 12 weeks after making some significant and sustainable changes to his diet and exercise routine. And again, if you look at the first column, you'll see an entry for leadership not listed elsewhere. And to operationalize this at Pre-Med Catalyst, we define leadership as being the one to spearhead solving a problem in your community with a team. And here is one of my favorite examples of leaderships from one of our students applying this year.
So here's an example of what impact translates to on your eventual personal statement or secondary application. This is from one of our students who applied this cycle, who works and serves people experiencing homelessness in a variety of ways. So you can see here, we start with a paragraph that describes how many clients she serves per night. That quantitative data gives you a sense of just how impactful she is. She's serving 1 client per night or 100 in this case, which is orders of magnitude different. The second demonstration that she's likely a leader and very impactful in this organization is that she's very aware and can clearly define the problem that this population experiences. In this case, they have a truck that delivers supplies, but sometimes their system doesn't have the most transparent and efficient means. So you can see in this writing, she's able to clearly define the problem that this population needs to overcome. And the person who can define the problem best most likely has the solution to the problem. And one of my favorite points is here in the third paragraph. You notice that she's not a leader by title in this organization, but she recognized the recurring problem. She brainstormed ways to resolve it, and she went ahead and proactively took that responsibility to take care of that problem for the population, for the people that she serves. Even if she's not the director of resources, she still went ahead and intentionally took care of it. And lastly, you can see in the fourth paragraph the exact impact she had. It went from 45 minutes to an average of 20 minutes, a 55% decrease in wait time so people could get the supplies and resources from socks to medications to anything that they needed to be healthier and happier on the streets. And given its success in multiple sites, she rolled this out to 60 plus other caseworkers, and now this is the go-to platform for the organization. That is everlasting, quantifiable change. She can qualitatively describe the problem better than anyone else, and above all else, she took ownership and she went and proactively made a difference, even if no one gave her permission.
Now that is clear, proven impact. In order to stand out, you must build a resume filled with quantitative and qualitative evidence. And that's also true of all the other competencies in the other data section of the survey. For example, if you want to show cultural competency, you might be like our student Maddie, who fundraised $35,000 from a silent auction featuring community artists in the Middle East. No matter what you are trying to convey, leadership and excellence in research, cultural competency, you must have proof. Proof is the separator. And if you're not really sure what decisions to make for your own pre-med journey, that's exactly what the Pre-Med Catalyst Mentorship Program was designed to solve. We'll help you take back control of your pre-med journey. We'll figure out your theme, create an intentional narrative underlying all of your extracurricular activities. And most importantly, you'll have a personal support system that will be in your corner, making every decision with you. Takeaway number 4, working with the underserved matters. If you want to know what medical schools really care about, take a look at the secondary prompts. These are the exact questions that medical schools will ask you to answer. For example, take a look at the secondary prompts from Stanford, and I want you to focus on questions 3 and 5 through 8. You'll see when we take a look at question 3, Stanford is looking to build a diverse community of doctors interested in many different facets of medicine. For example, are you a promising candidate for a career in academia or private practice? Or are you a promising physician scientist, political advocate, going to be the next leader in health policy, health administration, primary care, public health, or global health? And again, the proof comes back. They're going to ask you directly what experiences you've had thus far that would make you a promising candidate for a career in those areas. Really, they're not guessing. They're looking for pre-meds with proven track records, because a proven track record suggests that when these students come to Stanford, they will continue to show that level of excellence. And you'll see in the rest of the questions, they'll want to get to know you, your background, your community, and the identities that you hold. More importantly, they're looking for proof that you have advocated or made a true impact in the communities that you're a part of. Stanford, like many other top medical schools, are looking for the future generation of leaders in medicine. And the easiest way to do that is to find the existing pre-med leaders, the ones who are already leading undergrad efforts in health policy, or have built substantial clinical support tools for LGBTQ+ populations. If you want to better understand what medical schools are looking for and how to not make the mistakes that most pre-meds do, I encourage you to check out this video video where I talk about the brutal truths and lessons that I've learned after helping pre-meds get into medical school for the last 7 years. And our final takeaway number 5, person to paper mismatch syndrome. Remember, at the end of the primary and the secondary essay is the interview. And the interview is your final checkpoint for medical schools to ensure that the person that they read about on paper is the same person that they will meet in real life. When there's a difference between the pre-med on paper and the pre-med in person, there's a little bit of trouble. The most common scenario is when pre-meds chase activities that medical schools want to see, and it sounds great on paper, but when they ask about it in person, the pre-med is clearly flat and not interested. This is an example from my own application when I chased research that didn't matter. I wasn't fully passionate about it, and it certainly shows in the writing. During the interview season, whenever I was asked about it, I fumbled, not really being too involved with the research in the first place. And all of this hurt me a ton. A lot of medical schools were interested in the accomplishments that I described on paper, but were wholeheartedly disappointed when they talked to me about it. That discrepancy in animation and excitement on the paper versus in person is a real life example of person-paper mismatch syndrome. The second most common scenario when this happens is when pre-meds are in the interview setting and they talk about certain parts of healthcare that they're extremely passionate about, but that they don't have any evidence for on their resume. You may say in an interview setting that you really believe that healthcare policy is the answer to help underserved populations get better access to care, yet your entire resume has no activities in that space. What is coming out of your mouth does not stand on its own 2 feet. Make sure when you are intentionally building your application that it's built around the things that you care about, because eventually sometime down the line, you will be called to talk about and be animated and be excited about those things in an interview setting. And if you truly are not, there is a bit of a facade that can disappoint your dream programs. Those are the 5 key takeaways from the AAMC survey of 128 admissions officers. These are literally and explicitly all the things that they care about when making a decision on who gets accepted. Execute on these 5 takeaways and you'll intentionally build an application that is in line with what they're asking for and what they want for future medical students.